Muy buenos días para todas y todos. Estamos en la segunda jornada de reunión de este Congreso de Estudios Críticos del Rock y el Metal en Colombia, y también encuentro internacional de estudios sobre el heavy metal y toda la cultura que rodea a esta expresión. El día de hoy, en la mañana de hoy, tenemos como invitada, lo habíamos dicho ya desde hace unos buenos días, a una de las personas que podemos decir que es el pilar de la escritura, el pilar de la investigación en estudios culturales relacionados con el heavy metal. Se trata de la doctora Dina Weinstein. Dina Weinstein es socióloga y ha desarrollado y ha trabajado durante años con los análisis que tienen que ver con la cultura del rock, del heavy metal. Es una persona casi que, digámoslo de esta manera, referente obligado para las investigaciones que tienen que ver con este mundo del metal. Para nosotros es muy importante, it's very important you're present in this moment, y de verdad que simplemente agradecerle que usted esté con nosotros. En este momento nos están observando desde Nueva York, México, Argentina, Colombia, Guatemala, España, Spain, different countries. Muchas gracias, Dina Weinstein. El profesor Alejandro va a estar conduciendo el diálogo con Dina Weinstein, y nuestra doctora también del doctorado en estudios sociales, Angélica Guillón, nos va a hacer el ejercicio de la traducción simultánea en ese momento. Le agradecemos nuevamente a la red Rita por este trabajo, al doctorado en estudios sociales, a la maestría en investigación social y al IPASUD, tanto como todos los medios aliados, la Radio Universidad Nacional de Colombia, la Universidad Pedagógica Nacional y en general a la Universidad Distrital, que es la gestora de alguna manera de todo este trabajo tan importante. Welcome, Dina. It's very important you present. Alejo, muchas gracias a todos ustedes. Con ustedes, Dina Weinstein.
Okay. Here, Alejandro Borges, el profe del metal, saying horns up, and I'm pretty excited and to be here with my friend and mentor Dina Weinstein, one of the first sociologists to study heavy metal as a study object. So I'm very pleased to have her here. So Dina, you have all the space here all the time. Go ahead. This is your conference. We're all ears here with you. Thank you very much for joining us.
So I can share my screen so people don't have to look at my stupid face, okay?
Yeah.
So we've got things for you to see rather than me. Okay. Buenos días, mis amigos y mis amigos de la futura, or el futuro. Disculpe, pero no puede hablar en español. Bueno, yo hablo en español, pero un dialecto muy diferente. No hay gramática y solamente pequeños de palabras. Así es necesario para mí hablar en mi mal inglés, de mi acento de Brooklyn, but I live in Chicago. Okay. Alejo, el profesor, me pidió que hablara hoy sobre varios temas. La primera es describir como mi interés por el heavy metal. Why the heck I am interested in metal. Interested is putting it mildly. Obsessed is a bit closer to la verdad. Like most all metalheads, including people who are here, my interest started because I really like the music. I really like the music. Unlike most of you, I never knew about the music through a friend or a relative or through television or radio or magazines. I bet most of you haven't learned about metal the way I did. Also, though, I suspect that you started studying metal long before, and so did I, before we were metal academicians, because most heavy metal fans know a whole lot about the music they like. They can tell you histories of bands they like. They can tell you which the best albums are, etc., etc. And initially, for the first couple of years, I learned from fans about the genre. But unlike you, I was almost a full professor before I ever heard any heavy metal, before I heard rock music. When I was a freshman in college, we were forced to take a music appreciation course, and the professor said to put away this rock and roll stuff that we like because that was for children and we're now adults. We should listen to classical music, and that's all I listened to for almost 20 years.
Bueno, Dina nos está haciendo una introducción sobre cómo fueron esos inicios de ella, esos vínculos iniciales con la música. Y dice pues que la mayoría de las personas desde muy temprana edad nos vinculamos con los diferentes géneros musicales a través de diversos medios de comunicación. Ella tuvo sus inicios en ya vínculo directo con el rock específicamente en la universidad, y empezó a recibir estas posturas de que no era una música muy adecuada para los jóvenes, y eso hizo que ella se interesara un poco más por el estudio, digamos, de este género musical. Eso es lo que nos ha, a grandes rasgos, puedo resumir lo que nos ha dicho hasta el momento. Trataremos de que sean más breves las intervenciones para que no se me pase mucha información. ¿Sí? Dina, por favor.
Bueno, mis estudiantes en mis clases de sociología theory had been saying things that I thought were profound and sometimes sounded poetic, and I would praise them for it. And they would say, well, it's not mine, it's Ozzy. And I'd go, what's an Ozzy? And they said, Sabbath, Chaos Sabbath. Black Sabbath, I've never heard of Black Sabbath. Or they'd say, it's Floyd, you know, Pink Floyd. I never heard of Pink Floyd. And so when they
entonces cuando ella empieza a dar su cátedra de sociología, encuentra que sus estudiantes son bastante curiosos en lo que tiene que ver con el tema principalmente del rock, y comienzan a comentarle sobre grupos musicales, sobre diversos elementos que tenían que ver con este género, y eso hace que ella como profesora empiece a involucrarse más y a interesarse más en el tema.
Así, they brought me tapes, cassettes of their kind of favorite rock. And I like this stuff. I like lots of songs that they put. And certain students would put all punk whoa, I like that. And others put hard rock and metal, and I really like that. And they came to my office with boom boxes. Es demasiado ruido. Así, they took me in los automóviles y blasted the music up so loud. And I found that I really loved loud too.
Empezó entonces a recibir material de sus estudiantes como cassettes y diversos elementos que luego llegaba a su oficina y empezaba a escuchar, pero pues empezó a tener también dificultad con el ruido, era muy estruendoso, entonces decidió también empezar a escucharlos en el auto, en diferentes espacios, y eso hizo, digamos, que su motivación creciera y su pasión por la música, por este tipo de música también.
It wasn't until 1982 that I got to see my first metal concerts.
En
UFO,
1900, pero no fue sino hasta en 1982 que tuvo la oportunidad de asistir a su primer concierto de rock, de metal, perdón.
and it's not necessary to translate these titles, so don't you worry about it.
Okay.
UFO, Judas Priest, Dos Veces, Iron Maiden, Scorps. And that's when I became a metalhead. The live concerts just were too magnificent.
Fue con Judas Priest, con
I'll go like
Scorpion,
this and you,
con...
yeah.
no recuerdo.
Bueno,
Y fue cuando realmente se sintió involucrado.
Later that year, mi universidad permíteme enseñar, to teach a course in rock. I learned very well. I learned Spanish as well as I learned rock. Yo puedo hablar español ahora. And I learned it so well by the late part of the 80s, I was going to write a book on rock. Pero two things happened. I'm just showing pictures so you don't have to look at me. This is a quilt that a guy in Wolverhampton made, and it was shown at the museum when the Home of Metal conference was there. I thought, it was from t-shirts that he quilted a piece of art. And these are the questions that I'll be talking about that Alejo had asked me. And so I'm on this first one, and I will get down this list.
Ok, acá nos presenta entonces los principales cuestionamientos sobre los que ella direccionará su presentación el día de hoy. El primero de ellos, pues vinculado con cómo llegó ella entonces a motivarse y a vincularse de esta manera tan apasionada con el campo del heavy metal, cómo se hizo una metalera realmente después de ese concierto al que asistió en 1982. Y luego cómo ha ido desarrollando, digamos, sus intereses intelectuales y de desarrollo investigativo en este campo disciplinar.
Bueno, the political situation in the United States actually was better than under Trump, but it was pretty awful. We had a very conservative president who was elected by fundamentalist Christian conservatives.
En este involucramiento, digamos, de ella, ha encontrado que los Estados Unidos pues son una sociedad profundamente conservadora, en la cual los políticos y las políticas de Estado pues se rigen desde una manera un poco rígida, valga la redundancia, y eso pues ha generado especial atención en sus estudios, teniendo en cuenta pues que son como dos elementos que se contradicen, ¿no? Un poco esta mirada muy conservadora de la sociedad frente a este elemento abierto y divergente que se encuentra en la cultura del heavy metal.
And it was bad enough that they thought that Highway to Hell was a religious song. And they thought that Wasps Fuck Like a Beast meant that you're supposed to have sex with animals. We laughed at metal concerts. We always spoke about how stupid they were. But when I found out that they had opened up private psychiatric hospitals to demetalize adolescents, their parents paid people to make them break their albums, cut their hair short. They did it with punks also. I don't get upset normally, but this just infuriated me.
Okay. Ella dice que muchos estereotipos bastante negativos que llegaron pues a caerle encima a toda esta cultura del heavy metal, expresiones o ideas como vincularlo con el sadomasoquismo, con prácticas sexuales con animales, con este tipo de elementos que ella encontraba ya como practicante, encontraba pues muy estúpido, muy salido de tono, digamos, muy alejado de la realidad, no solamente hizo que ella se enfureciera por estos estereotipos negativos, sino que la involucró, digamos, ya a estudiar de fondo y a dar a conocer lo que realmente sucedía.
Así, cuando un amigo de sociological theory called me one day and asked me to write a book for a new series that a publisher gave him editorial rights to sign up people and probably give him money too, but that's another story. And I said, a series in what? In theory? He said, no, in social problems. And I said, I'm not interested in social problems. Oh, please, Dina, write us a book. You write so well, you know. So I said, do you think that heavy metal is a problem, a social problem? He says, of course it is. Well, what the hell did he know? He didn't know about the music, and he read the newspapers and he heard television, and this PRMRC, the parental, they convinced everyone, including the mass media, that metal was evil. So I said, okay, I'll write you a book on what heavy metal really is.
Okay. Nos está contando entonces cómo este creciente interés de ella y descubierto por un amigo suyo que le dice, escribe un libro sobre el heavy metal, y pues ella lo cuestiona si él considera que el heavy metal es un problema social y que ella no está dispuesta, digamos, a escribir, a teorizar sobre el tema, pero él le ofrece, digamos, su apoyo para que ella se interese en el tema, y ella muy cuestionada por el asunto de que no puede ser un problema social, sino que es un elemento más de la sociedad, entonces se interesa realmente en escribir su primer libro. Heavy Metal, a Cultural Sociology, el heavy metal, una una cultura, unas
Bueno,
culturas.
I told them that I'd like to design the cover. They said no. So I told them what I want the cover to have. I want them to have a band, a metal band. I wanted them to have some representation of the metal industry. So we have security guards here. And I wanted the fans. And having them pointing like that, it's good enough. Unfortunately, they gave me two choices, one with this band, and I don't know if anybody recognizes who they are because it's a early 80s picture. It's Judas Priest. But they were going to put a band called Faster Pussycat instead, a hair metal band. Terrible. Okay.
Ok, entonces ella dice lo primero que pedí es que tener la posibilidad, la oportunidad de diseñar. ¿Me escuchan? ¿Me escuchas, Dina?
Bueno.
Sí, de diseñar la carátula. Entonces esa carátula del libro tenía que tener unas características especiales, unas condiciones especiales, y es que tuviera unos elementos representativos de la cultura metal que eran importantes, era importante pues darlos a conocer para que la gente se fuera involucrando, y entonces ahí tenemos a uno de los representantes de Judas Priest y otros elementos, digamos, ya vinculados con esa caracterización de ellos como personajes dentro de la escena del heavy metal.
Bueno, Hannah, the book was published in 1991 when everything was changing in metal, indeed in the whole world. We can go into that year as, you know, it goes down in history as when the world changed. Not especially, well, it changed. But metal studies did not start with this damn book, although most people who got a PhD in metal in this century reference this book. I don't think that some of them read it, but it got referenced. And I was not a metal scholar. I wrote the book, but most of my writing was on social theory, social philosophy at this time. My next encounter with metal came in 1992 when somebody who was a senior in college when my book came out, maybe a year later, sent me his paper on speed metal and was now a professor of ethnomusicology and invited me to give a major address at the ethnomethodology convention in 92. I gave a talk on global metal because by then the fascination that metal was spreading so rapidly.
Ok, entonces nos dice que a pesar pues de todas las ideas contradictorias que existían hasta el momento, se extendió rápidamente, digamos, como esta fascinación por la cultura metal, y la invitaron a una convención a dar una charla sobre la importancia, digamos, del heavy metal como un elemento de resistencia social y un elemento en el que convergían diversos factores y diversas circunstancias sociales. Y siente ella que este tipo de situaciones hizo que se extendiera con mucha más facilidad el conocimiento sobre la cultura metal, incluso más allá de lo que había logrado con su libro.
Bueno, and here too, it wasn't metal scholarship. This was ethnomusicology. Metal scholarship as a field began at the same time as the smartphone came in. The first conference was in Austria in 2008. And ever since then, there have been metal conferences at least once a year, initially all over Europe. So this is a picture that I took. I don't like being in pictures, so if somebody gives me a camera and tells me where to press it, I'll do that. And this is in Birmingham, and that picture of me earlier was standing next to it. This is Iron Man. They made iron, steel. They had the coal in Birmingham too. And, you know, so look at the cover of the Priest British Steel. And it's cute that a band named Black Sabbath it's a song called Iron Man. And so this humongous statue is right in the middle of Birmingham. And here are some metal scholars that you may have read some of their work. That's me standing next to it, but somehow you can see me better because I cropped it. And one of the things that these by the way, stop me when you need to translate, okay?
Okay.
Please, you know, wave at me.
Okay, nos está contando entonces de que precisamente este boom y este interés que empezó a tener la cultura, digamos que la rigurosidad de la academia, dice ella, nos decía previamente, generó que se fueran abriendo otros espacios, y entonces la foto que nos mostraba nos refería a un momento que ella tuvo en Austria, en el que tuvo la posibilidad de compartir con diferentes representantes del heavy metal, y nos mostraba, digamos, como toda la caracterización de lo que implica estar en un encuentro con personas interesadas pues en discutir a nivel no solamente informal, sino a nivel académico, lo que tenía que ver con la construcción cultural de estos referentes de la cultura heavy metal.
Bueno, I met Andy Brown in Cologne in 2009. This is Andy and Niall, and I know him too. I forgot where it was, but it was some years later. This is one of the conferences in the United States at Bowling Green, where Jeremy is the chair of the department. And this is a young lady from China who brought a metal magazine from China, and she's finished her PhD in the United States on heavy metal. So she demanded, please, to have a selfie with her. And this is a bunch of what I call egghead bangers, metalhead bangers who are professors. And when we were in Helsinki, Finland, they took us on a boat tour. And so metalheads are always drinking, but here drinking on boats and interacting with one another. This is the first conference that is really stupid to be at, because my pleasure isn't talking to a group, but meeting individual people and connecting with them and having conversations about what they're writing, what I'm writing, and working with them on various projects.
Ok, entonces nos sigue mostrando, nos sigue haciendo como este recorrido por los diferentes momentos y por los diferentes espacios en los que ella ha transitado en su devenir intelectual como estudiosa de la cultura heavy metal. Muchas gracias, Alejandro, por los términos ahí en el chat. Nos clarifican bastante con relación a estas expresiones de edge metal y este tipo de cosas que tienen que ver con estudiosos. ¿Cómo otra vez, por favor?
Bueno, y Alejo wants me to speak about what my main findings are. Who the heck can do that? Well, I figured I would tell you the first thing that came to me. But this is a really tough question, Alejo, and I'm gonna skirt around it. My principal conclusion is that metal started out politically and continued politically and is still political. That there is a political message behind all real metal. I mean, hair metal is not what I'm talking about. I mean everything else but that. And it's political in a broad sense, in the sense that it is against the current society. It shows discomfort with it. And it's political in its critique, but unlike punk's critique that looks for a better world, a criticism of what should be done, like get rid of Trump or something.
Gracias,
Metal
Dina.
tends to look back.
Gracias, es que es una core idea y si no la digo ya se me olvida. Dina nos dice que el principal descubrimiento que ella ha hecho a lo largo de pues, todos estos años de estudio es que el heavy metal, el metal, es terriblemente político. Es un elemento que recoge situaciones sociales, las condensa y genera criticismo, criticidad, y que eso ocasiona pues que tenga un poder político muy fuerte. Es decir, no solamente porque condensa las situaciones sociales, sino porque estas situaciones sociales condensadas e instituidas dentro del heavy metal se convierten en un elemento de resistencia. Gracias, Dina.
Bueno, this is not unique to metal. It is a stand against modernity that we've seen in 19th century arts, classical music, paintings, etc., poetry. It is a stance that was popular in the counterculture in the late 1960s, in the States and Western Europe. And it was a stance that a number of my favorite philosophers, like a guy named Nietzsche, but the existentialists and the postmodernists also share. Deleuze especially, but most of them share.
Nos está diciendo que una de las cosas que llama mucho la atención a partir pues, de sus estudios es el descubrimiento de que condensa elementos de reflexión filosófica de altos intelectuales y los logra, digamos, llevar a la práctica o logra discernir sobre ellos a través de elementos más micro. Entonces nos habla acá de los planteamientos de Deleuze. Entonces, cómo desde las microcotidianidades sociales se generan resistencias y ahí también podemos encontrar presupuestos filosóficos de otro tipo de expertos.
When I was in France 2 years ago at the last metal conference, what you just heard was the theme of my paper. So I'm not going to repeat it here, and it's not published yet, may never be, because I like thinking of things. I don't care to publish it, but it may be. Yeah. So ahora la próxima pregunta. ¿Por qué el heavy metal es un tema importante para la academia? ¿Por qué es importante que los futuros investigadores estudian heavy metal? Y tengo algunas cositas a decir about this. I'm just showing you pictures of people who are, you know, more of the people at these. There's lots and lots. There are hundreds and hundreds of professors that focus on metal around the world. I was astonished when I first found out about this and thrilled. This is a talk we had. Some of you know Nelson Vargas from Puerto Rico, and he had one of the conferences. Oh, you have to show where there's metal, there's beer. This is in Cologne. They have a type they like. And the other thing is to note that this is just Kimmy Karki, and he's in 3 bands right now that play all around the world. Really good stuff. His doom metal I like especially. And he knows other people like Alex Skolnick or, you know, a guy from Anthrax. And so we had them at meetings, and these idiots watch MTV. And so when I asked the question from the audience, oh, Dina, hi, they knew who I was from the silly MTV. But a lot of people who are professors of metal are also in metal bands, not me. My specialty is playing CDs, MP3s, and vinyl. I have electric guitar there. So pathetic that I can't stand it. But lots, you know, lots of metalheads in general are musicians.
Ok, nos retoma nuevamente para respondernos este cuestionamiento de no tomar, digamos, el estudio del heavy metal como algo ligero, y era un poco lo que nos hablaba anteriormente del metal de peluquería. Y es gente estudiosa. Entonces dice ella, muchos de los que estudian el heavy metal en las academias son músicos de bandas de heavy metal, es gente experta en el tema, gente que conoce del tema, y por lo tanto ese conocimiento y ese afecto que profesan hacen que lo hagan, que lo hagan de una manera rigurosa, de una manera seria.
Bueno, así, ¿por qué es importante estudiar metal? Hay algunas razones. It teaches you about an art form. And learning about metal, a number of people have written PhD theses on other types of music and on other types of art forms using what I wrote in that first metal book as their model. I was pleased. Secondly, artists and metal musicians are artists, but artists in general are more sensitive to the world than most people are. And they tend to see changes before nation states, conglomerates, and the general public do. metal was also, if you see how metal changed, and then nation states and conglomerates and everything started catching up to where metal had been. And one could go into that in detail. Another reason to study it is that it's really easy to be friendly with people who really like the kind of music you like. And so you can, and they teach you about their specialty. I don't like disciplines anyway. And so you can mess around with people who are professors of English or musicologists or all sorts and learn their specialty on a higher level.
Bueno, Dina, sí, gracias. Nos dice ella que pues una razón es porque se comprende el lugar en el mundo, se comprende el lugar en la sociedad, uno se hace crítico. Y otra razón que le parece muy importante del por qué estudiar o por qué abordar el heavy metal en espacios académicos es un poco vinculado con el placer de disfrutar o de compartir más bien con personas que tienen gustos similares y poder encontrar, digamos, que el trabajo académico y el trabajo intelectual también se puede convertir en un espacio de disfrute, en un espacio de goce, en un espacio de compartir con otras personas que tienen afinidades con uno. Entonces, es básicamente lo que nos acaba de decir.
Yo soy I'm a sociologist, and one of the things sociology studies is interpersonal interaction. Right now, I'm just talking to nothing. We're not exactly interacting. But, you know, with 3 or 4 people over some beers or just talking together face to face, sociology used to study that a lot. And small groups are constantly happening in universities called committees and in private and public organizations called committees. How do people work in community in these small groups? And rock bands give us a beautiful access to them. So reading about rock bands, getting to know lots of them. I've also been a rock critic, mainly metal, for the 3 decades. So I got to know them personally. I was allowed to sit in the studio with a number of them, obviously be on the bus, be in their backstage when their groupies came in and I left, etc. And had nice long talks with a number of them too. And I've been writing a book for the last 20 years. I have over 610 pages of outline with hundreds and hundreds of references and paragraphs written. And I don't want to finish it because I keep getting more insights every time I read about some other band. So metal has been good to me, from my own discipline too.
Como estudiosa de la sociología y del campo, del campo social, de estas dinámicas que se van tejiendo al interior de los grupos sociales, ella encuentra que estudiar las bandas de heavy metal abre, digamos, una puerta para estudiar esos vínculos en esas microsociedades que se tejen y por lo tanto se convierte en un análisis no solamente apasionante, sino complejo. Nos cuenta que ha estado escribiendo un libro por muchos años y que pues cada vez encuentra más elementos para irle vinculando a su análisis, más emergen, digamos, más situaciones, más elementos, más procesos que hacen que ella, a través del análisis de lo que pasa, por ejemplo, en el escenario, encuentre otras situaciones y otros aspectos que merecen abordarse. Entonces, no solamente lo considera complejo, sino apasionante este estudio de lo social, de la sociología, desde la excusa, digamos, del género musical.
Bueno, so what I put up here is I looked at my Vita, my CV, and just pulled out some things that were metal and put them in some sense of what their topics were. And this is what I've done on metal. And there's so many areas that I have not covered that other people are now covering, have covered in the past. And most of these, I was asked to write a chapter for a book. And I remember when I got the request for doing a chapter for a big book on humor in rock music. Dina, would you do one on metal? And I read the email and I go, metal doesn't have any humor. Oh. And then I thought, and I kept seeing more and more on different types. So I gave myself a quick course in the analysis of humor. And I wrote that. And the debut albums, I argued that Kill 'Em All is Metallica's best work, and it was downhill from there. I've been messing around with, and this will be part of a chapter in my band book, is the stereotypes of different positions. Lead guitarists tend to be a species unto themselves. There are exceptions to all of these stereotypes, of course. But so I did one on that, and then the all singers are dicks. ¿Cómo se dice dicks in español?
Pendejos.
Dicks.
You'll have to teach me.
Pendejos.
A drummer was describing it, and every time I've told that title to somebody who's not the lead singer, goes yes, yes, yes. And my husband, when I wrote that, was the lead singer in a band I put together. He had a metal guitarist, but the drummer could only drum as a punk drummer, so it became a punk thing. My husband's a political scientist, political theorist, so it's a hyper left-wing punk band, but he was the singer. And I asked him, did I get it right? Oh yeah, exactly. And he told me how the rest of the band loved him, but resented him for getting all of the applause, for all the groupies coming up to him. And, you know, he was twice as old as any of them. And by far the ugliest one there, but he got the groupies, he got the marijuana. He did share a bit of the marijuana with the rest of the guys, but and on journalism about how rock critics until the late 90s really needed heavy metal as their enemy. On the local economic context, how metal started in Birmingham, England, and why it started there. On gender, I don't know what that B is after that, but on what masculinity means is not, in my estimation, a matter of DNA. but it is a cultural attribute that anybody can espouse and embody. And I always thought it was power, not power over people, but just power. And this piece on playing with gender, I showed how loads of women and men in metal have embodied all sorts of gender stereotypes. The death metal Mexican bands, oh, those women were, I mean, tough hombres. You know, nothing like the symphonic metal female singers. And the rock band thing and protest songs. That protest thing came from my recognizing that Judas Priest songs were all protest songs of one sort or another. Rob says, no, I didn't write only about being gay. I only wrote 1 or 2 songs about that. I said, I think I could analyze about 75% that way, but okay. And on genre, on who named the damn thing heavy metal? And about 5 different people claimed that it was something else. And so I just did some research and found out who was the first person to use the term in print, heavy metal, about a genre of music. And whatever, okay?
Dina, permíteme por favor resumir eso que tan interesante que me regalas la por favor, sí. No, esa, gracias. Es muy, muy, muy importante lo que está acá porque digamos que es una idea, digamos que de alguna manera condensa mucho lo que nos ha dicho hasta ahora. Entonces, Dina nos dice que vincular, digamos, o quedarnos con estas miradas estereotipadas y no indagar, no investigar, no profundizar, digamos, en esos universos simbólicos que se tejen al interior de este tipo de géneros musicales, en toda su constitución, no solamente física, sino simbólica, pues nos priva, digamos, de la posibilidad de explorar elementos como el humor. Y entonces dice ella, desde esas miradas estereotipadas, la gente dice, pero ¿qué puede haber de humor en el heavy metal? Y ella dice, lo que yo he descubierto es todo lo contrario. Lo que tiene que ver con el análisis de los álbumes, de la constitución literaria, por ejemplo, de los títulos de estos álbumes, de las canciones, de las letras, es decir, dentro de todo este entramado que nos llama, digamos, a identificarnos con su producción discográfica, hay una cantidad de sentidos y de significados que a veces se nos quedan por fuera por quedarnos como con esta mirada muy superficial y estereotipada de simplemente es un género diabólico, no merece ser abordado, por allá no explore, no es interesante. Y entonces nos dice ella cómo entonces estas constituciones nos permiten mirar lo religioso, por ejemplo, mirar lo que se teje en la industria discográfica y las relaciones económicas, mirar cómo se sitúan, digamos, desde las canciones, desde las letras, desde la misma tonalidad musical, cómo se genera protesta social frente a ciertos hechos. Que están ahí inmersos y que a veces simplemente por el disgusto al ruido o por esta actitud tan humana de juzgar a priori, nos perdemos, digamos, esa posibilidad de revisar todos estos elementos simbólicos que nos hablan, digamos, de una constitución, pero también de un situarse reflexivamente frente a la sociedad en la que se está viviendo. Eso, Dina.
Bueno, what did I get wrong? I could talk about, but I don't think we have any time. No tenemos tiempo. I can. Y hay preguntas para mí. Oh, comments. dígame, what should I do?
Pregunta que si tenemos más tiempo, que si hay preguntas o comentarios para ella, ¿qué debemos hacer en este punto, digamos, de la disertación?
Por favor, profe Angélica, yo creo que ya ir cerrando y ver la transmisión en vivo si en los comentarios en el Facebook Live, no sé si hay.
Ok, entonces, Dina, they said that it's important to start closing the lecture. And after that, we are going to receive some comments or some questions for you.
Bueno. Muchas gracias para su atención. You wanted me to say goodbye, yes?
Alejandro no está por ahí, ¿quién iba? No sé quién va a retomar los comentarios.
But I think it's important, Dina, that you finish the answering this question. What did you got wrong along your
bueno.
Because I think it's important, no?
I probably got many things wrong, but I'm only aware of one big thing I got wrong, two big things.
Okay.
There's certain types of metal I don't like listening to.
Okay.
And so when it first came out, one of my editors asked me to write about new metal, neo metal. And I said, oh, it's just grunge and hard rock. And I dismissed it. And what I didn't realize is that I am blind to what people know about the music and experience the music, because I really don't like videos. King Diamond asked me if I liked the show. I'd seen him beforehand and I came backstage afterwards. I said, yeah, it was great. You know, I especially like the way you did this song. He says, no. He was talking about the stage show. So I said, no, I put my hair in front of my eyes. I don't like the visuals interfere with my listening. So I didn't realize that a lot of bands' message comes through in their videos. Not that the band even wrote their videos, they may act in it, but that's not exactly authenticity. And so I didn't take it seriously. And I had the most exquisite experience last 2 months. Somebody from the Middle East called me up at Foundation and asked if I would speak to one of the artists that they were supporting. I said, why about metal? I never say no when I'm asked to speak to somebody about metal. So I said, sure. We had an 1.5-hour Zoom thing, and he was into new metal, and they had sent me his pictures that I have hanging behind me that you can't see, and I'm not going to show it to you, but they're amazing, but they're abstract. And I got them immediately. And so they then asked, would I write a chapter on his art for his book that's coming out, you know, with his art in it. So I said, sure, I would. And so we had another talk about how his music maps directly onto how the music he likes is in each of the paintings. There's elements of it, because there's lots of elements there. And then as we were talking, I said, gee, and I have a whole theory of what these are about, based on this postmodern philosopher, Deleuze. He says, oh, I love Deleuze. That's exactly who I believe in. Everything he's written, I believe in. I said, does he influence your art? He says, totally. So my metal got me to meet somebody who made me appreciate nu metal, and somebody who can talk to me about the blues. And so I am ecstatically happy about that. So my taste, you know, I shouldn't dismiss things too easily is what I'm saying. And that's especially in the things that I write for magazines, because I've written gazillion thousand of, you know, reviews of concerts and albums. And they expect journalists to have an attitude. And my editors always said, but you're analyzing it, you're not giving attitude. I don't like giving attitude. I like to analyze. So I sometimes try too hard to give attitude, and I shouldn't. So that's
Bueno,
basta.
Dina gracias. Dina nos dice que una de las cosas que más lamenta de no haber tomado en cuenta antes y que siente que ahí se equivocó por un largo periodo de tiempo fue no haber analizado otros elementos como estas nuevas tendencias que fueron emergiendo, y porque ella estaba como muy focalizada en la parte de heavy metal como tal, y dejó de lado un poco nuevas emergencias que fueron ocurriendo, y por la misma razón, entonces ella consideraba que la esencia, digamos, se podría capturar a lo largo del concierto, por ejemplo, pero que analizar videos o analizar este tipo de situaciones o de elementos no le aportaban mucho, y siente que ahí hubo, digamos, una cosa que ahora lamenta mucho, porque pues analizando ya los teóricos de los que hemos hablado, se da cuenta que de ahí también había podido retomar elementos importantes para constituir un análisis mucho más profundo a nivel sociológico. Es básicamente lo que nos acaba de contar. Bueno, muy resumido porque realmente fue bastante, pero digamos que nos resume de esa manera la respuesta a la pregunta de en qué me equivoqué con relación a lo que hasta hoy ha sido pues su proceso de estudiosa en este campo. Gracias, Dina.
Okay, now my turn. Ahora es mi turno, entonces gracias, Angélica. I had a power outage, so aquí les tuve un bajón de corriente. Entonces yo voy a tratar como de articular un poquito de lo que de pronto se quedó por fuera por la traducción, lo que ha notado. Aquí tengo el Facebook abiertos para poder como interactuar más. Yo creo que hay por lo menos 3 temas que ustedes quieren tratar con Dina. El primero, bueno, aquí hay uno que habla que si el heavy metal está hecho, porque yo creo que aquí hubo un error de pronto en el entendimiento, porque preguntan que si el heavy metal está hecho por clases medias y sujetos académicos que entienden la filosofía, y no. Yo vamos a pedirle a Dina que aclare eso. So Dina, there was like this little misunderstanding, I think, that said that someone understood that heavy metal is done by academic types that read philosophy, that study philosophy. So I would like you to clarify what is the relation between heavy metal and 19th century philosophy. You mentioned Nietzsche, you mentioned some others. So if you could clarify that, please. What's the relation with heavy metal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most metal scholars are not philosophers at all, mm-hmm. Number one. Black metal scholars, there's a couple of them from philosophy departments, and they have sort of defined things through that. So no, it's not. But the commonality there is the individual, but also feeling a part of the whole that they don't feel. So, I mean, everybody's read Zarathustra, and Nietzsche wants the herd to be not heard, but to be you know, authentic individuals, and that's what he's talking about. And so that authenticity that Nietzsche, or even better, Max Stirner, who was writing in the late 1840s, early 1850s, it's the romantic individual who is not alienated from their context. And so the existentialists got that, well, Heidegger and Nietzsche, etc. too. It's not necessary to appreciate philosophy in order to appreciate metal at all, by no stretch of the imagination. But I must admit that Lemmy told me that he learned German to read Nietzsche in the original. And Lemmy's one of the intellectuals that in metal that I really appreciated, and he, you know, would speak with me on the phone. We would fax together. I would be backstage with him a lot. But it's rare. It's very rare. I just like philosophy a lot, but I really like sociology a great deal. And most of the work I've done, the philosophy is there because it's there in my understanding of sociology.
Okay. Listo, entonces para hacer una claridad, Dina dice es que no todos los metaleros, algo que ella sí dijo es que todos los metaleros son historiadores, porque todos conocemos y revisamos mucho sobre el metal, eso es verdad, pero no todos necesariamente son académicos. Lo que ella ve es en esta conexión, sobre todo digamos en el caso del black metal, es esta idea del individuo romántico, ¿no? Todo lo que es como esa necesidad de ser auténtico. Eso es lo que uno ve en el metal. Eso es lo que comparten sin que sean académicos o de clase media, sin que sean filósofos. De hecho, pues aquí ella menciona una persona con la que ella conversaba mucho, era Lemmy Kilmister de Motorhead. Yo creo que acá todos cuernos arriba sabemos quién es, en donde él era uno de los pocos metaleros intelectuales que él incluso aprendió alemán para estudiar a Nietzsche desde el idioma original. Entonces, ese, digamos, pero que no es una necesidad. Ella lo que pasa es que a ella le gusta mucho la filosofía y su perspectiva de la sociología está muy alimentada desde la filosofía. Espero con eso haber dado a Gil Jefe siempre es. Aquí voy a tomar una pregunta de Mandos Bauglier, donde él pregunta ella que ha visto qué tanto ha cambiado, entonces la voy a hacer en inglés. So Gina, another question that we have from our public is, in your experience as a metal academic, a metal journalist, how much has metal changed from 1982 today? How?
Amazing, just amazing. The only thing I can say about that it astonishes me, when I began my love affair, the two albums that I bought and I played to hell and back and over, and still the hair rises on my arm and my neck, UFO and Rainbow. Only because I loved the two guitarists. I didn't need the rest of the albums. If you just gave me the guitar solos, that I was in love. And then I started adding on. So I knew classic metal, you know, traditional metal. And when Maiden came in, and actually before Maiden, Judas Priest had some faster metal. Well, I like punk a great deal too. And so I like the speed metal a great deal. And I couldn't get enough of it. And I went to some street fair in Chicago, and there was a band playing speed metal. The first time I heard it, I thought I would die. And then a couple of months later, I walked into a record store. I bought one new metal album in my life. All the rest were used. And there was about 5 stores within a mile of where I live. I went to at least one a day. You know, some people take vitamins. I went to metal stores, And I walked in one day and one of the clerks knew my taste and he says, I got a tape I got to play for you. And he never gave me the tape, but he played it for me. It was Kill 'Em All by Metallica.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So I was, totally. And then death came. Death came in the band Death. I got the album before I saw them live. But when I saw them live, I said, oh, damn. When the Mexican kids hear this, they're just going to go apeshit. Because I knew Mexican culture and I knew how important El Muerte is in Mexican culture. Well, I don't know if that's why Mexicans like death metal, but they like death metal. And sure enough, after that first year, every death metal concert I went to, at least half the audience was Mexican Americans. And so and one of the benefits of death metal is reading hard philosophy, because you don't have to worry about the words interfering with things coming in. It's fast, it surrounds you, it allows you to be swept along as in a tide while you are reading anything, novels or tough philosophy, or the stupid term papers I've got to grade. And then when black metal came in, Emperor, and people were saying, how could you like this? They're so bad. I go, I don't judge music by the morality of the people who make the music. My body says I love it, that's all. And so I really, and Black and Death, I could hear that constantly. Doom metal, I liked from way back when, before it was, I never used the term doom metal. Trouble was a band from Chicago who I was in a head-on collision. I was a passenger and my neck bones were broken. And I thought I'd never go to a metal concert again because I couldn't move my head. And Deicide came to play, and I just spent like 3 weeks before their show in the shower with hot water on the back of my neck, trying to get it to move. And I went there, I loved Deicide anyway, but that was the concert I knew I could go back to going to concerts. It's like 4 months. Chicago at the time was a heavy metal heaven. There were loads of venues and loads of fans. And now hardly any shows. There's one place a couple of miles from here. But everything else is way out in the suburbs. And I live near the lake in the opposite direction, and I don't have a car. So, and my bike was totaled last August, which is broke my cheek, broke this, but still haven't recovered from the injuries. So and what I'm missing most of all was, I don't know how you find out about new metal. I get a lot of underground metal by email. You can't listen to, you get 40 or 50 new albums a week. Which ones do you choose to listen to? Not many at all. But Metal Fest had been going on from 1986 or 87 to 2006. Started with 15 bands in one day. And the last couple of things, 155 bands in 3 days. My personal best, I got to see 62 bands in those 3 days, you know, do their whole set. And Jack Korshak, who was the organizer, got to do, you know, they brought Mayhem in. I mean, you know, the first time Freddie Lynn on Chthonic came to the United States was at Metal Fest. So I got to see all sorts of new type of bands and got to meet the people. Mayhem came without their electric device to change DC into AC into DC or something. So they had to play acoustically, which was, I didn't put that in my metal humor chapter, but we thought that was very funny.
Okay. So Dina, I'm going to interrupt you here so I can translate.
Yeah, well, there's nothing
we're
more.
We're a little just like they're pushing us, and I want to make one last question. So I want to translate this and
sorry. You know,
okay.
Hold up your hands. You know I'm able to talk forever.
Yeah, we'll both talkative person. Bueno, aquí ambos parlanchines, pero bueno, entonces, básicamente Dina, bueno, ella entró en el metal con las bandas tradicionales, UFO, Rainbow, Judas Priest, pero también, pues lo ha mencionado, es gran fan del punk. Entonces el speed metal y posteriormente el thrash metal la llevó al Kill 'Em All de Metallica, luego esto al death metal, y que ella dijo, bueno, ella es muy cercana a la cultura mexicana, y esto les va a encantar a los mexicanos, dada su cultura.
And industrial with Ministry.
And Industrial with Ministry, Chicago, bueno, entonces industrial. Y que hoy ahora pues actualmente tiene una dificultad de, hay muchas bandas en el underground, hay muchas bandas en el subterráneo, conectar con esas bandas, ¿cómo lo hacen? Es difícil. Entonces ella, en ese caso es en el festival, tenía una anécdota de Mayhem, en donde un convertidor de electricidad no les funcionó, entonces Mayhem tuvo que ir acústico. Entonces ese es como otro de los tantos datos que tenemos. Y entonces vamos a hacer una última. Yo sé que hay muchas preguntas en el Facebook, pero ya estamos un poco contra el tiempo. Y yo creo que esto es como algo que engloba muchas de las preguntas. Yo le voy a hacer una pregunta sobre algo sobre política y clases sociales a Dina, para que nos hable unos 5 minutos y con eso damos finalizado. Y bueno, como siempre, bienvenidos al Devenir Monstruo. Lástima, no tuvimos más tiempo y pues como le decía Dina, aquí un par de parlanchines que podríamos estar hablando mucho tiempo. So, Dina, just to close up, to sum up in 5 minutes, there are a lot of questions about metal and social class and metal and politics. You were mentioning something with punk, but it got lost in translation. If you could make a
quickly, what I wrote in the book about metal and social class was absolutely true at that time. Since 91, it's much, much more the upper middle class. And that's possibly why it's more political, but less, it's totally changed. Partly for the globalization reason. In places where you can afford to buy the instruments and have the electricity. You know, there's metal in Namibia, there's metal in, you know, the outback of Australia. The people who could afford the instruments are upper middle class.
Ok, bueno, entonces ella dice, pues lo que ella escribió en su libro, digamos que aplica a ese momento. Ella nos contaba pues en el año 91 que cambió el mundo, que ahora pues el metal se ha globalizado, pero algo que sí se ve es que pues precisamente el metal ha cambiado un poco en el sentido de que cada vez más, o lo que ella percibe es que el metal pues son aquellos que pueden acceder a los instrumentos, acceder al servicio eléctrico. Pues vemos que hay metal en todos lados del mundo. Ya menciona Namibia, en el desierto australiano, en lugares pues deprimidos. Entonces que eso digamos que en cierto modo ha facilitado, pero en eso tiene pues digamos lo que se ve. Entonces también pues aquí es una mirada de cómo han cambiado las cosas, ¿no? De cómo tenemos que actualizar y estudiar más estas miradas, diría yo. I'm telling them that we should maybe look more into this, as you said in your presentation, that maybe there's going to be a lot of discussion, I know, about it, because heavy metal is supposed to be working class or middle, lower class, not upper middle class, but I don't know. So Dina, sadly, we ran out of time. I'm hoping to talk with you sooner than later. We still have a lot of going on. And thank you. We're very honored to have you here.
I'm honored to be almost there, though.
Bueno, dice que está muy honrada de estar casi acá. So, Dina, thank you very much, my friend and mentor. I'll talk to you now privately. Y a todos los que nos están siguiendo en el Devenir Monstruo, pues esto fue Alejandro Borges, el profe del metal, presentándoles a Dina Weinstein. Yo sé que aquí hay muchas controversias en Facebook, ahí les estaremos atendiendo. No dejen de seguirnos. Y bueno, nos veremos entonces ahorita en las mesas de la tarde. Dina, any last words?
Yeah. Y gracias a Angelica and I mean, all of you. Thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank
Cuernos
you.
arriba, horns up for everybody. See you next time. Los vemos en la próxima. Cuernos arriba.
Well.